Hello, in this video I am going to show you another deck profile for the Synchro Festival. This is one of my favorite archetypes, an Ice Barrier deck. Ice Barriers have always been one of my favorites. So as for the monsters, the most important one is Revealer of the Ice Barrier, so 3 copies of Revealer. Once per turn you can discard 1 card, special summon 1 Ice Barrier Tuner from your deck. Also you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn except water monsters. Keep this in mind. And it has a secondary effect: if you would discard or send a card from your hand to the graveyard to activate an Ice Barrier monster's effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead of one of those cards. So for example, if you already have one in your graveyard and play a second one, you can banish this instead of discarding 1 card for its cost. Then the second important Ice Barrier monster is Speaker for the Ice Barriers. So Speaker has this effect: while you control another Ice Barrier monster, defense position monsters your opponent controls cannot change the battle positions, but this is not the important part. The important part is once per turn, if you control an Ice Barrier monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. So free special summon basically. Also, if you control an Ice Barrier monster, you can banish this card from your graveyard, special summon 1 Ice Barrier token level 1. Another great Ice Barrier card, but I think 2 copies is the right amount for this one, is General Wayne of the Ice Barrier. Spells and traps sent from the field to your opponent's graveyard are banished instead, so this part probably is not as useful in the Synchro Festival. In ranked, this is great against Eldritch, but the second effect can always be used, or is always useful. Once per turn, if your opponent controls a monster and you control an Ice Barrier monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can add 1 Ice Barrier spell or trap from your deck to your hand. And the other Ice Barrier monsters, 1 copy of Prior of the Ice Barrier. You can tribute this card, then target 1 Ice Barrier monster in your graveyard, special summon that target. And of course the tuners. So for level 1 tuner, Hexer, Spirit of the Ice Barrier. For level 2 tuner, I play Cryomancer of the Ice Barrier, and for level 3 tuner, I play 2 copies of Geomancer of the Ice Barrier. Then the other monsters I play are the usual hand traps, so 3 copies of Ash Blossom. You can also play 3 copies of Max C. I only have 2 right now, so that's the only reason why I play 2. You should probably play 3 Max C. And I always like to play 1 Link Apple. It's basically banish 1 card from your extra deck to draw 1 card, just card draw. Then I play a bunch of battle hand traps that can be used as synchro material. So 1 Smoke Mosquito and 3 Speedroid Manko. Manko is especially great in this Synchro Festival because there are no links, so it will always change all opponent's monsters to defense position. As for the spells, of course, 3 copies of Medallion of the Ice Barrier. And I just now realized that I only play 2 Upstart Goblin. I should probably play 3 and replace another card for this. Then of course one Harpy's Feather Duster, one Lightning Storm. Then I like to play one Raigeki in the Synchro Festival, 3 Forbidden Chalice, and then the Ice Barrier spells, 1 Winds over the Ice Barrier and 1 Freezing Chains of the Ice Barrier. Winds of the Ice Barrier, tribute any number of Ice Barrier monsters special summoned from your deck, that many level 4 or lower Ice Barrier monsters with different names from each other during your main phase. Except the turn this was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one of your Ice Barrier monsters that is banished or in your graveyard, add it to your hand. You can only use each effect once per turn. So this card is important in case you don't have Revealer, because Revealer is the most important card of this deck. So if you just have one of the tuners, for example, or just any one of the other Ice Barrier monsters, this spell is great to replace it with a Revealer from your deck, to then use Revealer to Synchro Summon. And Freezing Chains, of course, is great. You can target 1 level 4 or lower Ice Barrier monsters in your graveyard, special summon it. The second effect is more or less useless. I don't remember ever using this part, while you control 3 or more Ice Barrier monsters are unaffected by the activated effects of your opponent's monsters that were special summoned from the extra deck. But the part that is usually used is that you can target 1 level 4 or lower Ice Barrier monster in your graveyard, special summon it. And that's also the reason why I play Prior of the Ice Barrier. So usually you target Prior, revive Prior, and then you can revive any Ice Barrier monster, even level 5 or higher. So you can revive, then use Prior to revive Wayne, or use Prior to revive one of your Ice Barrier Synchro monsters. And the great part about this is it's a continuous spell. So if you then Synchro Summon Deviloran, Tiger King, you can use it to return the spell to your hand and recycle it every turn, use it once per turn. For the traps, 1 Solemn Judgment. And for the Synchro Festival I like to play 3 Compulsory Evacuation Device. Then the extra deck. As you can see, I am missing some cards, so if you have Gungnir, Dragon of the Ice Barrier, and Brionek, Dragon of the Ice Barrier, of course you should play those 2. So the other Ice Barrier Synchros, I don't have Brionek and Gungnir, so I'm missing those 2. Let me show you. That's Brionek and that's Gungnir, especially Brionek is OP. For level 5, sometimes you might need a level 5, so I play 1 copy of Crystron Amatrix. It's because it's water attribute and 2500 attack. Then 2 Deviloran Tiger King of the Ice Barrier. You don't really need this one, I just had open space left. So I put in Goyo Predator, you probably don't need this one. This one is actually pretty nice, White Aura Dolphin. Once per turn you can target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls, its attack becomes half its original attack until the end of this turn. Also, if this card you control is destroyed, a battle or card effect by your opponent's card, it has to be your opponent's card, and sent to your graveyard, you can banish 1 other water monster from your graveyard, special summon this card, and if you do, it is treated as a tuner. So your opponent basically has to banish it or return it to the hand or deck. If your opponent destroys it, you can pretty much always revive it in this deck. 1 copy of Black Rose Dragon, 1 copy of White Aura Monoceros. This has basically the same attack, the same effect, the same second effect as the Dolphin. The first part is useless in this deck. 1 Shiranui Squire Saga, You can banish one fire monster from your grave, so that would be Ash Blossom to destroy a spell or trap card, or you can banish one synchro monster from your grave to destroy one monster on the field. One Glacial Beast Iceberg because it's water attribute. 2700 attack. During the battle phase, when your opponent activates a card or effect while you control another monster, quick effect, you can negate that effect, and if you do, destroy that card. So you need to control another monster for this effect. Then one level 8, just in case. The best level 8 I have is Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend. Then of course Trishula Dragon of the Ice Barrier. You don't need to play this when I just had open space left. And in theory it would be possible to summon this Hot Red Dragon Archfiend. One White Aura Behemoth. So this can be summoned if you revived White Aura Dolphin with its own effect, because it becomes a tuner then. So one White Aura Dolphin that revived itself and a level 4 monster, you can make White Aura Behemoth. During your turn, when this card is synchro summoned, you can special summon one Divine Dragon token. Fish Water level 10, 3300 attack and defense in defense position. Once per opponent's turn while you control no tokens, quick effect, you can special summon one Divine Dragon token. If this card you control is destroyed by an opponent's card effect and sent to your graveyard while you control a Divine Dragon token, you can special summon this card in defense position. So pretty nice if you summoned White Aura Dolphin. On Satellite Warrior, this can also be summoned, same summoning condition basically in this deck as Behemoth. So if you revived White Aura Dolphin with its own effect... never mind. Forget what I just said. Actually it's different. For Satellite Warrior the synchro has to be the non-tuner. For Behemoth the synchro has to be the tuner, and for Satellite the synchro has to be the non-tuner. That's the difference. So the usual way to summon Satellite Warrior would be then to use a level 7 synchro you have on the field already and the level 3 tuner. If this card is synchro summoned, you can target cards your opponent controls up to the number of synchro monsters in your graveyard, destroy them. And if you do, this card gains 1000 attack for each card destroyed. And the second effect is useless in this deck. And the most important synchro in this deck, the most powerful one, together with the regular Trishula, is the level 11 Trishula. Trishula Zero Dragon of the Ice Barrier. 1 tuner plus 2 plus non-tuner monsters. When this card is synchro summoned, you can banish up to 3 cards your opponent controls. You can see that's extremely powerful. Also, it does not target, that's even better. If this synchro summoned card in its owner's control is destroyed by an opponent's card, you can special summon one Trishula Dragon of the Ice Barrier, so the level 9 one, from your extra deck or graveyard. Its attack becomes 3300. Then half the attack of any face-up monsters your opponent currently controls. Also negate the effects. You can only use this effect once per turn. So not only is its effect on summon great, but also your opponent basically has to either banish it or return it. If they destroy it, you get the second effect, which lets you basically summon a buffed version of the level 9 Trishula. So this card can win you many games. And of course the level 9 Trishula 2 with its effect. When this card is synchro summoned, you can banish up to 1 card each from your opponent's hand, field and graveyard.